They did not ask his name. They did not check his ticket. They did not ask where he was going. They looked at him. They made a decision. And they removed him from the plane in front of everyone. What they did not know, what nobody in that terminal bothered to find out, was that he owned it. Every seat, every gate, every aircraft in the sky that afternoon, and before that flight ever pushed back from the terminal, he made sure every single one of them stopped moving, all 217 of them, at the same time. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon at Charlotte Douglas International Airport. Gate 14 was full, families with strollers, business travelers with laptops open, a group of college students arguing over who had the window seat. Nobody was paying attention to the man in row 14. He was not loud. He was not moving around. He was not doing anything at all except sitting in his seat in a gray hoodie, reading a paperback and waiting for the boarding door to close. His name was Wesley Callum, and in approximately 9 minutes, everything in that terminal was going to change. The gate agent's name was Pryor. She had worked Gate 14 for 6 years. She prided herself on what she called reading the room, knowing before something happened that something was going to happen. She would tell investigators later that she had a feeling about the man in row 14. Not because of anything he did, not because of anything he said, just a feeling. She picked up her radio. 2 security officers boarded the aircraft 4 minutes later. They did not speak to the flight attendants at the door. They did not ask to review any incident report. They walked directly to row 14 and stopped in front of the man in the gray hoodie. "Sir, we need you to come with us." Wesley looked up slowly from his book. He did not raise his voice. He did not make a sudden movement. He simply asked one word. "Why?" "We have received a report. We need you to come with us now." Something moved across Wesley's face in that moment. Not anger. Not shock. Something older than both of those things. A recognition. The kind that lives in the body before the mind catches up. He had been here before. Not in this airport. Not with these officers. But in this exact moment. This exact feeling of being seen as something he was not. In a space where he had every right to be. He stood up. He tucked the paperback under his arm, and he walked up that aisle while 180 passengers watched without saying a single word. In the side room near Gate 14, Wesley sat across from a security officer who could not look him in the eye. The officer said they were conducting a routine review. He said it 4 times in 6 minutes. Wesley let the silence sit between them. Then he asked the question directly. What specific behavior triggered this removal? The officer shifted in his seat. He looked at the wall behind Wesley's left shoulder. He said, "You looked suspicious." Wesley did not respond immediately. He sat with those 3 words, and for just a moment, beneath the stillness of his expression, something broke open quietly. He thought about his father, a man who drove a delivery truck for 31 years and was stopped by police on his own street 11 times. 11 times. On his own street. He thought about every time in his career he had walked into a room and watched faces recalibrate, watched people rearrange their assumptions in real time when they realized who he was. He thought about all the people sitting in seats just like 14C, who never got the chance to recalibrate anything. He took a slow breath. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out his phone, and made a call. Wesley Callum did not grow up with money. He grew up in Decatur, Georgia, in a house where both parents worked and nothing was wasted. His father drove a delivery truck for 31 years. His mother cleaned office buildings downtown after the textile plant where she worked shut its doors without warning. They did not talk about struggle at the dinner table. They talked about work, about showing up, about doing your job so well that nobody could question your right to be there. Wesley heard that message so many times as a child that it stopped sounding like encouragement. It started sounding like a map for surviving a world that would look for reasons to question him. He was 12 the first time he flew on a plane. A school trip. He spent the entire flight staring at the wing. Not the clouds, the wing, the mechanics of how something that heavy stayed in the air. He never stopped thinking about it. By 19, he had read every aviation book his local library carried. By 22, he had his private pilot license, paid for by 14 months of double shifts at a logistics warehouse. By 26, he was a first officer on a regional turboprop route nobody else wanted. Cold weather, short runways, low pay. He flew that route for 3 years and watched the airline slowly destroy itself through bad decisions. By the time they filed for bankruptcy, Wesley had already built a different plan. In 2008, at the bottom of the worst financial crisis in decades, he purchased the collapsed assets of a regional carrier called Summit Air for $2.1 million. 6 planes, 3 routes, 1 gate lease in Charlotte. Every analyst who looked at the deal said it was a mistake. Wesley renamed the company Vertex Airlines. He flew the first route himself. 14 years later, Vertex operated 340 aircraft across 29 states with revenues of $4.7 billion. Wesley Callum was worth $2.3 billion. That Tuesday, he was in seat 14C in a gray hoodie, reading a paperback, like he always did, because he never stopped believing that the best way to run an airline was to remember what it felt like to be a passenger. The call lasted 43 seconds. Dana Cho picked up on the first ring. She had been Wesley's chief operating officer for 11 years. She had seen him handle hostile takeover attempts, federal audits, and a runway incident in Denver that should have ended the company. She had never heard his voice sound the way it sounded in those 43 seconds. Not broken, not explosive. Quiet in a way that was somehow louder than either of those things. He told her where he was. He told her what had happened. He told her what he wanted done. He told her to document everything. Then the line went dead. Dana stood in the hallway outside the conference room where her budget meeting was still going on. She stood there for 8 seconds. She was not deciding whether to do what he asked. She was deciding how to do it in a way that was airtight. She walked back into the conference room. She apologized for the interruption. She picked up her laptop and her phone. She said she would not be returning, and she went to work. What happened next took 11 minutes, but before it happened, there was a conversation that most people never heard about. Dana did not act alone. She called Raymond Osei, Vertex's general counsel, before she sent a single directive. She told him exactly what had happened. She told him what Wesley had authorized. Raymond was quiet for 4 seconds, then he said, "Do it." He said a CEO being physically removed from his own aircraft on the basis of no documented behavior was not just a personnel matter. It was a liability event. It was a policy failure at multiple levels. And an executive safety review, a temporary operational pause pending investigation of a threat to senior leadership, was not only within Wesley's authority to order, it was arguably what the protocol existed for. Dana sent the directive through Vertex's Executive Operations channel at 4:36 p.m. The channel existed for genuine emergencies, fleet-wide mechanical concerns, severe weather events requiring mass rerouting, situations where speed mattered more than process. It had been used twice before in Vertex's history. This was the third time. The directive was clean and precise. All Vertex aircraft in active operation were to receive an immediate ground hold pending executive safety review, no exceptions, no delays. Authorization code, Wesley Callum, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer. What followed was not chaos, it was silence. The specific kind of silence that happens when a very large machine stops all at once. Planes mid-boarding, stopped boarding. Seated passengers were asked to deplane. Gate agents received the notification mid-announcement and stopped speaking mid-sentence. Aircraft that had already pushed back were called back. 2 planes at runway threshold positions received the hold order from air traffic control and turned around. At 4:47 p.m., 217 Vertex flights across 29 states were on the ground. The FAA flagged the action within 6 minutes. Operations centers across 3 major hubs called Vertex's network control simultaneously. Airport PA systems in Charlotte, Atlanta, Dallas, Chicago, and Denver issued delay notifications at the same time. Vertex's communications team released one statement to every outlet that called in the first hour. Executive safety review in progress. That was all. Inside the company, from the most senior vice president down to the newest gate agent holding the notification, nobody needed an explanation. They all knew exactly what had happened. And they all knew exactly who was sitting in that side room near gate 14. The footage appeared online at 5:31 p.m. A passenger in row 11 had started recording late. They missed the opening exchange. But they caught enough. Enough to see Wesley stand. Enough to see the officers move in on either side. Enough to see him walk up that aisle, unhurried, book under his arm, while an entire cabin of people looked at everything except him. Enough to see his face. By 6 p.m., 3.4 million views. By 8 p.m., shared by 47 verified accounts, reaching a combined audience of over 90 million people. By 9 p.m., 4 investigative outlets had confirmed the identities of the gate agent and both officers. 2 of those 4 had confirmed something else. The man they removed from seat 14C was not a random passenger. He was the owner of the airline. The story did not travel. It detonated. Vertex Airlines trended nationally within the hour. The phrase, "he owned the airline," appeared in a new post every 4 seconds. A sitting United States senator called for a federal review of airline security screening protocols. 2 civil rights organizations announced independent investigations before midnight. The gate agent and both security officers were placed on administrative leave before 11 p.m. Their supervisors received the same notification the following morning. The vice president of ground operations submitted his resignation by email at 11:43 p.m. One line. Pursuing other opportunities. 9 years with the company. His badge was deactivated before his email finished sending. Inside Vertex's headquarters, the phones did not stop. Board members were calling. Institutional investors were calling. The company's insurance carrier was calling. Dana Cho sat in her office and answered every single one of them with the same measured calm she had learned from watching Wesley handle every crisis that came before this one. She told them the situation was being managed. She told them Wesley was safe. She told them the review would be thorough and the findings would be public. She did not tell them she had cried for 6 minutes in the hallway bathroom before she sat down at her desk. She did not tell them that when Wesley's voice came through the phone that afternoon, quiet and controlled and carrying something underneath it that she recognized from 11 years of working beside him, she had felt something break open in her chest that she was still trying to close. She answered the calls. She managed the situation. She did what she always did. Wesley gave his statement the following afternoon. No press conference. No PR team in the room. No logo arranged in the background. No podium. He sat at a plain desk. Phone propped up. No ring light. No script in front of him. He spoke for 4 minutes and 12 seconds. He said he was not removed from that plane because of anything he did. Not because of anything he said. Not because of any threat he posed or any behavior that could be named or written into a report. He was removed because of what he looked like. And because the people who removed him assumed, without asking a single question, that someone who looked like him did not belong in that seat. He said he understood that assumption was not new. He said it had been following people through airports, and into boardrooms, and down streets, and into schools, for as long as anyone in this country could remember. He said it did not surprise him. He paused there, longer than felt comfortable. Then he said, and I want you to sit with this. The fact that it did not surprise me is the part that should bother all of us the most. He said most people this happens to do not own the airline. They do not have an authorization code. They do not have a COO who picks up on the first ring. They have exactly what he had in that moment. The knowledge of what just happened to them, and no machine large enough to make anyone else feel it. He said those were the people he was thinking about when he made that call. He said those were the people this was actually about. 41 million views in 72 hours. The Vertex fleet resumed normal operations after a 19-hour ground hold. An independent policy review was announced, led by an outside firm with no prior contracts with Vertex and no financial incentive to protect the company's reputation. The review covered hiring practices across all ground operations, security escalation protocols, bias reporting systems, and gate agent training at every terminal Vertex operated in 29 states. 3 senior executives resigned in the weeks that followed. None issued public statements. None were asked to. Wesley Ellison funded a $47 million accountability initiative through his personal holdings. Not the company. Not a corporate social responsibility budget. Not a rebranding campaign. A personal check. Distributed to 31 organizations doing direct work in communities where this kind of assumption had been a daily reality for generations. He did not hold a press conference about it. He did not time it to a news cycle. He cut the check and moved on. The gate agent who flagged him was deposed several weeks later as part of the independent review. The attorney across the table asked her one question. What specifically made Wesley Callum look suspicious? She took a long time. She said she was not sure. She said something just felt off. The attorney placed a single document on the table and slid it across without saying a word. Wesley Callum's name. Chairman, Chief Executive Officer, Majority Shareholder, Vertex Airlines Incorporated. His photo in the upper right corner. the same face she had watched walk up that aisle. She looked at the document for a long time. The attorney did not prompt her, did not ask a follow-up question, just waited. She did not say anything else. They removed him from the seat. He grounded the fleet. And when the 19 hours were up, and the planes started moving again, and the terminals filled back up with the ordinary noise of people going places, he went back to his book. But here is what stayed with him. Not the headlines, not the 41 million views, not the resignations or the policy reviews, or the $47 million. What stayed with him was the silence in that cabin. 180 people, not one word. He understood it. He did not blame them. But he thought about it. Because the truth is, the assumption that removed him from that seat was not made by 2 security officers and 1 gate agent. It was made possible by every system, every culture, every room that had been quietly teaching people for decades to look at someone and decide, before a single word is spoken, whether they belong. Wesley Callum had the resources to answer that assumption in a way very few people ever could. But the answer should not require owning an airline. It should not require an authorization code. It should not depend on what your net worth is or what your title says, or how many aircraft have your name on the incorporation documents. Every person who boards a plane deserves to be left alone to read their book. Full stop, no exceptions. That is not a radical idea. It is the only one that matters. Before you go, drop a comment right now and tell us where you are watching from. We have viewers tuning in from all across the United States and all around the world, and we want to hear from you. If this story moved you, if it made you think, share it with one person today. Put it in front of someone who needs to hear it. And when you are ready, the next story is already waiting for you. We will see you there.